It is the 20th of October, and our reading this day in Baptist history is Teacher, Evangelist, and Pastor to the Cherokees. Our passage of Scripture is Philemon chapter 1 and verse 16. Not as a servant, but above a servant, a brother beloved, specially to me, but how much more unto thee, both in the flesh and in the Lord? Duncan O'Brien was born in 1785 or 1786, perhaps in Lawrence or Anderson County, South Carolina. By 1820, he had become a resident of Habersham County, Georgia, living there with his wife and 5 children. He had married Martha Whitehead, and eventually they had 6 daughters and 4 sons. In spite of the fact that he had a meager education, he was licensed to preach by 1821. He was described as one, and I quote, whose character and diligence are upright and constant. Under the influence of a Franklin County Baptist preacher named Littleton Meeks, he took an interest in the spiritual welfare of the Cherokee Indians. The ministry among the Cherokees by the Baptists came from 2 different directions geographically, the southeast and the north. It also came from 2 vastly different directions in terms of perspective. The Georgians accepted slavery, cooperated with Georgia's actions concerning the Cherokees, readily favored their removal to the west, and left prior to the Trail of Tears. On the other hand, missionaries from North Carolina and Tennessee, for the most part, objected to slavery, rejected Georgia's actions concerning the Cherokees, fought their removal, opposed the 1835 Treaty of New Echota, E-C-H-O-T-A, and remained in the East until the bitter end. Duncan O'Brien became a missionary teacher under the Sarepta Baptist Mission Society and later under the Triennial Convention. He was the resident teacher at the Tensawati Baptist School, where he had 28 scholars in 1821. In their report acknowledged by the Triennial Convention meeting in Washington, D.C. on October 20, 1823, they had a total enrollment of 25 students. From the beginning, it is apparent that Satan wanted the Cherokee Nation to continue under his dominion of spiritual darkness. The attendance at the school fluctuated. The school moved locations several times, and the Cherokees provided boarding facilities for their students and received some government assistance. At one time, attendance was as low as 3 scholars. O'Brien and his family moved to Hickory Log Town, where prospects appeared much better. But for a time, the attendance continued to fluctuate until in 1830 they reported 36 students, although they were irregular in attendance. As the process of the Cherokee removal to the west progressed, this, along with illnesses, was discouraging. But O'Brien persevered, and it is recorded he maintained Cherokee schools in 3 successive sites. In a report submitted by O'Brien and Meeks, it was stated, and I quote, "Since its establishment, about 200 children have attended to receive instruction, the greater part of whom have been enabled to read the word of life and to write a fair hand, and some have made acquainted with arithmetic. Some of the scholars embraced religion while at the school." End of quote. In addition to Duncan O'Brien's labors as a teacher among the Cherokees, he was also active as an itinerant preacher and pastor. He was ordained by 1826 and became the only pastor of the Tensawati Baptist Church. Moses Parris was the only known deacon who on occasion exhorted in Cherokee. He also served on the Cherokee National Council and was active in the economic, political, and judicial life of the nation. Brother Daniel, a black man, sometimes preached, and probably Cherokee Cetro, S-E-A-T-R-O-W, was a member and ordained minister. The most members recorded were 40, and they were scattered up and down the Etowah River. During 1830-31, O'Brien had a circuit of 4 preaching points, including the Tensawati Baptist Church, a schoolhouse, and 2 private homes. Some of these were 30 miles apart, and I quote, "Services of worship were composed in part of preaching and exhorting, both in English and Cherokee. Singing played an important role. At least at the close of the services, there were prayers when, and I quote, "Many came forward, bathed in tears, and kneeled down in token that they desired the prayers of God's people." End of quote. There were a large number of Cherokees in these congregations, and on some occasions United States troops who had been called in because of the turmoil and violence of those times. Late in 1828, the Georgia legislature passed a law to take effect June 1, 1830, which in essence brought all Cherokees in Georgia under state jurisdiction, destroying the political structure of the Cherokee Nation. In two related 1830 acts, the state initiated the process of surveying Georgia Cherokee land and distributed it by lot among white Georgia citizens. All white males living in Georgia Cherokee territory were required to be licensed by the governor or face a sentence of 4 years in the state penitentiary. This, along with the Georgia Oath of Act, affected the ministry of O'Brien as well as his relationship with other Baptist missionaries who were outspoken in their defiance of the Georgia authorities and the treatment of the Cherokees. All but 3 of the missionaries stationed in Georgia departed. 2 of those who stayed went to prison for not declaring their allegiance to Georgia, and Duncan O'Brien remained in the area because he was willing to take the oath. And I quote now, reflecting on the situation a year later, the highly influential Georgia Baptist religious and political leader Thomas Stocks commented, "Reverend Mr. O'Brien, a Baptist missionary, was in the nation, but he did not think it was his duty to defy the laws of Georgia, lecture on politics, and insult the government. Nor did he lose the confidence of the Indians for his respect to the laws." End of quote. This was a period of great turmoil during which injustices were being committed on every hand. Good men were divided on the matter, and severe criticisms were propagated. On January 27, 1832, Duncan O'Brien enrolled to leave Georgia and go west, where he settled in the northeast part of what is now Oklahoma. He soon gathered the remnants of his congregation into the Liberty Baptist Church and reopened his school without receiving federal funds for it. He died of malaria at the age of 48 on August 25, 1834, and was survived by his wife and 10 children. I quote, "Although O'Brien's departure from Georgia raised grave suspicions regarding Baptist motives, it did not halt Baptist missions among the Georgia Cherokees." By Evan Jones, Jess Bushyhead, Beaver Carrier, and others. O'Brien saw the shape of the future with clarity and left while dignity was still attainable. He and his associates escaped the abominable Trail of Tears in 1838-1839. Because of them and others like them, Baptist mission work among the Western Cherokees was initiated. Whether trader or sage, Duncan O'Brien was the first Baptist missionary among the Cherokees to cross the bridge from east to west. To God be the glory.